You're listening to the GC Collaborative Podcast, a resource for the worship arts team at Grace Church.
Welcome to this month's GC Collaborative Podcast.
What was that kind of intro?
Pure excitement. You know why?
Why?
New year, new me.
Oh my goodness,
I'm
it is a
just
new
kidding.
year. New you. Don't make promises you can't keep.
Yeah, I've already done that so much. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Luke Lauber, and I am sitting with the Bin Abu Sada.
Yo,
and
what's up?
we are so excited that you're joining us for our second podcast of the year 2021.
Yes.
We're so excited. This month, we have some special guests that we are super excited about. Ben, do you want to introduce them? No, I'll do it. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's the one and only preacher and poet themselves, Justin and Amy Raby.
Oh, and we are so excited. They have a ministry website kind of thing they do. It's called The Preacher and the Poet. I think it's thepreacherandpoet.com. And they do poems, videos, all kinds of cool stuff. You guys should check it out. But we wanted to interview them and just talk to them about what kind of got them into it, kind of their creative process and how they go about things, and even just how they even create in general. What's their philosophies? And so we're super excited. We think you guys will be inspired by them and just some of the challenges they've had and some of the risks they've taken and how it's worked out and what God's done through it. And so it's just really cool. And, you know, it may or may not have been a coincidence that we had a couple on the show for February and Valentine's Day. I don't know. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe the Lord's just working in crazy ways. I don't know. Yeah. But they're a couple, and it's Valentine's Day is coming up.
It amazes me, in addition to these types of things that they're doing, that, I mean, he's our South Overland Park campus pastor. Together they minister to the community at South OP, which is awesome. And then doing this in addition to that, yeesh, man, pretty cool.
So we're excited. They're two people that have inspired us a lot over the years. So we're excited for you guys just to hear their story and just get into their brains a little bit of how they do things. So hope you guys enjoy. Welcome everybody to this month's episode of the GC Collaborative Podcast. We have some very exciting guests that I'm super excited to introduce you to. This month, it is February, so it just seems natural to have a couple on the podcast to celebrate Valentine. I knew you guys would love that. Valentine's Day month.
Hallmark holiday.
Yep, Hallmark holiday. I knew you guys would love that. We've got Justin and Amy Raby on the podcast today. Thank you guys so much for being here. Yeah. I'm super stoked. I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting. Actually, we were supposed to do this last week, but because of the situations of life that we're in, we had to postpone it. So that was exciting. Yes, love it. But anyways, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, doing fantastic.
Yeah, good.
Means
I needed water. I think I had too much caffeine today. So
okay,
which is good because people say I sound like I'm not excited about anything. So this is me on lots of caffeine.
Don't you love it when people call out things like that and you're just like, thanks for letting me know that? Well, I wanted to have you guys on for multiple reasons, but as you guys know, this is kind of a creative arts worship podcast, and one thing that I love that you guys are doing, and we're going to go a couple different directions today, but one thing I love that you guys are doing is the preacherandpoet.com. And what I'd love for you guys to do is, one, describe kind of what it is, and then two, kind of where it came from and where it started, because I remember talking to Justin for a little while, and he was like, "Oh, we've got this website. We're going to start it." And then,
took a long time.
Yeah, and then one day, I remember being like, "When's this thing going to start?" And then one day, it was like you had website, you had podcast, you had poem. It was like, it was awesome, and I was super excited. But where did it come from, and thoughts, and how did it start, and then also just what is the hope, purpose of it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll start and Amy will fill in the gaps since that's what she typically does for me because I'll leave out important details.
That's all right.
So we had an opportunity to speak together here at Grace it was a couple years ago, called the Divinely Designed series. And so we were up there and then we left immediately. I think it was either that Sunday
It was
or
the same day.
Yeah, same day. We drove down to Florida to just have a vacation. And as we were driving down, we were like, man, it was so great to create together, to prepare something together. And in times past, maybe in our marriage, it was a bit more difficult. And so maybe we matured enough to
That
actually...
look that you guys had in each other's eyes in that statement was Valentine's
luckily,
Day.
this is a podcast,
Yeah.
You can't see our faces. So we were just talking, and then we started brainstorming what we would call it, and we landed on the Promptivist. And I bought the domain and built a website and a logo for it, and we didn't do anything with it. And then what?
Yeah, we didn't do anything with it. I think when we started that one initially, we were probably trying to be or do something that we weren't. Like what makes a podcast successful?
Yeah.
Like looking at those kind of things instead of like just who are we? And so it was probably like a year of that domain just sitting there not doing anything, the Promptivist, and us always being like, we gotta record some podcasts.
$12.99, we'll never get back.
And then I think, well,
two cheeseburgers
Justin
right there.
probably shared like spiritually just things that were going on in him with that, even with that same idea of trying to be or do something successful, but isn't really true necessarily to who you are as a person. So then we were like, let's just scrap it. Like,
it felt so nice too. I
Yeah.
know that story sounds odd, but we were going in a direction that was not who we were even.
Yeah.
Like, not like in the weird sense of who we are, but like knowing and loving God. We were not working through that. And then there's this statement that we both talked about. We both read a book and watched this video about, I know Eugene Peterson's fairly controversial. I don't know why. But he's when you hear him and see him and read his writings, he's just an
So
amazing
sweet.
man
So sweet.
of God.
Absolutely.
And he says, the church is at its best when it lets you be yourself. And so we really
Yeah.
started running down, and we had this domain, we had a website, which we were paying for monthly and not doing anything with. And so I forgot what the turning point was when we finally said, like, no, let's do it. And we don't actually care if anybody ever reads it.
Yeah.
That's when we started actually moving towards something that was more who we were and bringing glory and honor and treasuring who Christ was.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So then we came up with the name, I think maybe we're like pastor and poet or something. Because I started writing poetry, like a lot of it, probably a couple years ago. So that's where the poet part comes from. But then we were like preacher and poet, and it just like landed. And then I already had like tons of poetry and content that we
200
could
poems probably.
put on there,
Yeah.
like just old stuff that I had been writing. So anyway, that's kind of how we got there. But as far as what it's for, like why we do it, what we hope to come from it, really, like honestly, I think it's just like to give God glory. So we're both very big believers in like whatever God is doing in you, it's not just for you. And so the overflow of like what God is doing in you through his word and through his Holy Spirit and all of that, to let that overflow for others. And that's a very like biblical concept, but really that's the point of it. So just whatever we're seeing and experiencing with God, to just share that so that other people can hopefully see and experience him too.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I always think of, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows his handiwork. And so if we are his handiwork or his masterpieces, then we have things in us that we want to get out there. And the temptation is to do it so people will go run towards it and look at it and read it. And, but we we actually got away from that because she did a couple posts, had a couple 600 views or more, which doesn't seem that large for us. It's big.
Well, most of the others are like 12.
Oh yeah.
And so the temptation is to
You're
write.
like, all our parents read this one.
Hey, when you're just starting, that's a big deal.
Well, the temptation is to do provocative things so more people read them. But that's not why it's there. It's actually just an avenue and a medium and a place where we can create and try
and
things.
hopefully just encourage people, like a lot of times you read things and you're like, that's how I've felt, and I just haven't been able to put words to it, and so to do that. And
yeah. I think that's the beauty of art, though, is that hopefully, like I always think about this even with worship on the weekends, is hopefully, God willing, he's speaking to us as we're picking out songs for the weekend. And I pray and hope every weekend that somebody walks in, it's like, oh my gosh, like that's what I've been going through. I couldn't put it to words, but like that's it. And to be able to worship through that. So I think that's the beauty of artists sometimes is we feel a lot, which is annoying because it feels like you move really slow because you're like, holy smokes, everything, like I take so much of it on. But I wonder sometimes if that's why, is because we are meant to take that and put it out as art for people to then connect to and ultimately connect to the Lord. So I want to dive into this thought because I love it and I love this about you guys, and you said it already, but just this idea of we went after something that we thought people wanted, and that's kind of the direction we were going, or what we thought people would want. And then there was this moment of let's just create from who we are and go that direction, and whatever God, I might be putting words in your mouth, but whatever God wants to do with it, God will do with it, kind of thing. And I want to dive into that a little bit because I think that's such an interesting thought, at least for me. I know just being an artistic personality, sometimes it's really easy to say, I know this is what people would like, or to think in that vein rather than I'm just going to create vulnerably, whatever the art form is. And if people like it, they like it. And what was that like, getting to that place? Was it just kind of like, boom, here we are? Or was it kind of like a struggle of some sort, or like processing things, or what did that look like? Or do you remember?
Oh, it's selfish ambition. Every bit of it is selfish ambition. It starts in that direction. You think, oh man, this website could get big. You think, oh, maybe we'll make a little bit of money from it so it'll actually pay for itself. Oh man, maybe we could, who knows, do all kinds of fleshly ambition things. And then you finally like try to look at yourself or ask God what he desires, what he wants from it. And then you go, I actually don't care if one person writes it, because your audience goes from the mass to him. Like, we have this statement in our household lately, like, there's only one question in life: will God, or does God enjoy it? If you can't say yes, don't do it. And if I'm doing it for the enjoyment of even others, I know that this is we can talk the scriptural doctrinal basis of it based on Matthew chapter 22, but if it's not first for God, I've got to move. I'm moving my arms a lot. I'm sorry.
Justin's hands are literally just hanging in the air.
Yeah.
My arms are raised.
Keep thinking
Like
I have to talk with my hands.
Like they do.
I figured your shoulders were going to get tired at some point.
No. It's like,
It's amazing.
Moses.
It's like you're slow dancing with a giant.
Victory.
I have to just help you support your arms here.
Yeah, please support them as we're at war for this podcast.
That's right.
You're
But
preaching.
doing it for God first.
Yeah.
And then if somebody likes it, it's because you love him first. I'm sure Amy will articulate it in a different way, but
No, I think that's right on. I sort of, I think, knew that Justin was struggling through some of that, because that's probably more his personality. Like the default is like to impress and, be successful and whatever. So you always have to redefine what success is. So the world's going to define success. Sorry. I may have just said sex. The world.
We'll edit it out. Not
Yeah.
really. I say that
It's
every
fine.
time, and then I'm just like, we're running behind. I got to put it up. So just throw it up there.
Success.
Okay, success in the world's eyes. Let's get back on track here, fellas. I'm good at that, aren't I? I do
Yes,
that.
you
I'm
are very good at get people back on
get
track.
back on track.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, just always, we were talking about this the other day, but just always like going back to the foundation, like what is success? And for all of creation and mankind, success is to glorify God as the person that he created you to be. And so lots of views and lots of numbers and subscribers and whatever, like that's not true success. That's world's success. So I think Justin probably was wrestling through a lot of that initially and probably didn't even know it. And I was just kind of waiting and praying because like I just kind of knew like, Lord, there's some sort of little hurdle that like you're bringing him over. And then like once he brought him there, it was like, right, like get rid of all this stuff we were going to do. And then we were able to really, the preacher and poet is just stuff we already had and stuff we were already doing and being. And so it wasn't hard to try to figure out how we were going to, go forward with it.
Yeah. But I think it's hard. I mean, I know just for me too, just, in anything, and maybe it is the, performer side of it, but it is a continual, like I'll go through moments where it's like, God, why am I so frustrated? Why am I so like, why is everything just so draining and, seems like a pain? And then he just kind of gently reminds me of, it's because you're trying to perform all the time. Like you're not just in that place of your identity's in me and flowing from that. It's you're trying to gain acceptance either from him or from people. And I think, I don't know, I've only lived in America, but I don't know if it's an American thing or a human thing or a guy thing or whatever, but it does seem to be like everything pushes you towards, I mean, I have conversations with people all the time where it's, well, what do people like? Let's make what people like. Let's make, and it's that, it kind of seems like that's like the norm or the thought of that seems logical, but I wonder sometimes and come to the place of, what if we're just supposed to create out of who God's created us to be? Which seems so simple. Like, duh. But it's so hard to... Because I think it takes a level of vulnerability. It takes a level of reaching deep inside and not knowing if what you put out there people are going to like or not. And that's always hard when you put something out there and then people are like, this sucks.
Yeah.
You're like, it's just my heart. Don't worry. No. Yeah. But no. So I think it's awesome. I think that's the beauty of in as artists ways we can bring the kingdom of heaven into the world and into the art world is, I don't know, maybe I'm just dreaming here, but redeeming that side of it of, hey, it's not about the consumer or whatever that is. It's about creating what the Lord's put in your heart, and you're going to reach people with that. And it might be 2 people, it might be 200,000 people.
Yeah.
But that's not, up to us.
Yeah.
That's up to the Lord,
Well, what's that old statement? From our old fundamentalist background, we used to say, well, it's all going to burn anyways,
Yeah. Man,
And,
you're going from Eugene to fundamentalist.
I know. I'm sorry.
Trying to keep
we're,
up.
We're a good mixture here.
But
We're a melting
people
pot
used to say
of-
that, like, it's
love
all
it.
going to burn anyways. Doesn't matter. But I don't know. There's a book called Garden City by John Mark Comer, and he talks about the concept of if you're creating it for the glory of God and in His image, and if He did command us to create and multiply and subdue the earth, one way you do that is by taking the gift, skills, and abilities God has given you to create. And are those things that are glorifying God and bringing Him honor and praise and majesty, are those going to burn? He makes a case in the book that they won't and they don't. And so then it's like, man, I'm gonna create for His glory, whether it's a sermon or with words or if it's something tangible, sculpture, whatever. It's a commandment from God to subdue.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to do that for His honor, His glory, and namesake. And then you look at the lost world or those far from God, they're still trying to subdue.
Oh, absolutely.
They're just doing it for idolatry, for selfish reasons. So we don't want to do that, even though it creeps in.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
And I think
I guess I just do preach all the time. That's just what I'm doing.
Oh my gosh, you
So
guys
good.
should
sorry.
No, it's
try
good.
living
You're
with
good.
him at home. Like, good
Valentine's Day.
morning.
Hey,
Have you read Genesis 5?
February. Remember?
No, we preach to each other probably.
That's
Yes.
awesome. No.
But I think trusting like
good.
like everything that Justin said, and trusting that when we're creating for an eternal significance, like God will do what he wants to do in the temporary in people's lives. So like having faith that God will use whatever you're doing to reach, and touch the people that he wants it to.
Yeah. Well, and I think the hardest thing about like that kind of stuff in art is sometimes the most influential stuff isn't influential in its time, and like there's story after story of artists dying, and then their artwork, touches the world, or, somebody puts something out and in its time, it's not accepted because people don't understand it. And then decades later, all of a sudden, that happens with music too, where it's not accepted because it's not understood. And so I think that's always like success in the art world to me is always such an interesting thought, because it's like, what might even be popular in today's world of art or music or whatever it might be, might not be remembered 100 years from now, but some unknown poet or painter who nobody knows in their lifetime, all of a sudden somebody finds their artwork, years down the road, and it's like, boom, changes the world. So it's just always weird. So I think that always, for me too, is encouraging to just think about of like in that of vulnerability and honesty, and because I think that's what changes the world is vulnerability and honesty and leading people to the Lord.
It's relatable. I mean, when you're vulnerable, it's,
Well, I think that's why
people can relate to pain. And
I think that's why the Psalms too have, obviously it's the Bible, but they've also carried so much weight through the years is because David and the other writers were just vulnerable and they were honest. And I relate to David because sometimes he's super happy and sometimes he's like, and depressed, and
Well,
it's like within one chapter.
One verse. Sometimes.
the highs and lows of the hour.
I relate to that. Okay, good. I'm not the only one. But no, I think that's awesome, and I think it's just cool to hear your guys' hearts behind that. And I love listening to podcasts, reading the poems, and it's just cool to see what the Lord has done. And like I said, I remember Justin talking about it a little bit of, it's going to start it. And then it's just been cool to see it started and see like some of the stuff you guys have done. And one of them was the video for Rachel's house, right? And I forgot about this till today. You wrote the poetry and words, right? And then Justin actually just whipped out, which Justin, I'm just going to say this, it's actually annoying how like he'll just pick up painting and then he paints these paintings that I'm like, how did you do that? And then he starts making videos and he just makes them out of nowhere, and it's
He's
like
a closet creative.
It's like just insane. But let's talk about that a little bit. Just Justin, like, when do you have these ideas, these thoughts? Because I think, being the quote unquote 3 perfectionist, kind of having it all together, I'm sure it takes a little bit of like fear to start something new and say, I'm just going to go for it. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just making that up. Maybe you're just like, I'm going to rock this no matter what it is.
Win.
I don't know. Yeah,
Amy, I don't know. I like to do things well.
Yeah.
So. But I didn't catch the question in there. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I wasn't using my arms.
You gotta speak his language.
What is your, when you're kind of starting these new things, so you just started painting. You painted a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? And then you kind of started again. And then you like made the video out of nowhere. So I'm assuming you probably haven't at least done that for a while. So what happens in these moments? Are you just like, I'm just going to try it and just see what happens? Is it like, what goes through your head when you try these new endeavors? Because it's just cool from outside watching, seeing you start things.
Do you have any idea, Amy?
Well, I think
I can tell you the story how they happened.
They both are kind of birthed out of a need, honestly. So the painting, you guys were talking about him doing a painting for Good Friday. So I think he just kind of started like messing around with painting, and then he enjoyed it, and he's painting these like crazy good things. And same with,
I have one right here, actually. Between the 2 pieces of art you've given me, Justin, they fill up half of my art collection.
Yeah. If you want to
Yeah.
see Justin's painting, come to Luke's office, everyone. And
Yes.
the bear. Yeah.
Bear over the TV.
But same for Rachel House. We made a video for, it's a partner of Grace's that's helping men and women who experience unplanned pregnancy, and they use like some evangelistic tools. So it was a video that we show our clients, and so it was kind of like, I just was kind of like, hey, could you do this? Like, do you think you could give it a shot?
Yeah.
Which is really a lot of things we do. I'm like, hey, can you make this? Can you do this? And he's like, I'll try. And then it's like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah, I think that's probably, it's born out of some necessity, and it's probably born out of a love to learn.
Yeah.
So I do like learning how to do new things, and it's sort of sad, honestly, because like I feel this, I don't want to sound arrogant at all, but I'll master whatever. And I know that Rachel House video isn't perfect by any means, but I'll do it and it'll be to a certain level, and I'll go, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
So I haven't
Absolutely.
painted in 3 months.
Yeah.
So, but
Hey, that's
anyway.
cool. Because I think I would assume, I mean, there's that level of it's necessity, but I would assume there's some level of what am I doing? Holy smokes! Like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, Rachel House was born out of necessity because I think some people that were going to do it were covered up. And so I just asked for some stock video, and then it just happened at the same time that Kurt White did a score. That's
right.
And I was like, hey, I wonder if we can
score for it. It was perfect.
And
Yeah.
it was just such a beautiful, like I was just listening to the score, like almost weeping because it's so
Yeah. Oh my
beautiful.
gosh,
he's
right? Yeah.
he's a freak of nature. Kurt
He's
is.
insane.
So the score happened. Amy had already had the words, and so then I just cobbled stock video together, honestly, and then tried to get the levels of audio good
Yeah.
enough.
Yep.
And we kind of did the video, like editing and stuff, we kind of did together, just
Yeah.
knowing who would watch the video and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and then just trying to match up some of the I don't know.
Like the video with
The
the,
images.
music and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we
Timing.
recorded it on our tiny little Shure MV88 mic probably 15 times, because I did it 5 times with different voice inflections, and then Amy did it, and then we just thought
Yeah.
the man's voice sounded better, and so then
Yeah.
we cobbled it
That's
together.
awesome.
So, and then the painting stuff, my brain just works that way, I think. And I did it when I was 16, and it actually this wasn't birthed out of necessity at all. It was birthed out of my mom for Christmas last year said she wanted some paints because she wanted to try her hand at painting. I was at Hobby Lobby, and so
He was at
they were
Hobby
on
Lobby.
sale, 50% off.
Good man, right there.
And so I
He got
bought
one
2
for
sets.
himself, and then he just started painting.
And then
yeah.
started painting and
That's awesome.
painted a few things, and then we were supposed to do something for Easter or Good Friday.
Friday, yeah.
And then pandemic, I
Yeah.
believe, happened.
It did.
And then so I had these 2 huge canvases,
Yeah.
and you were like, "Hey, you want to do something for the talent show?"
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
I said, "Sure." So I went down and filmed.
The lion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
so
awesome.
Yep.
So
Weird.
Amy, how do you? I kind of know the behinds of this, but I think it'd be awesome for people to hear. You are a master of words, which you will never agree to that. So I'm just going to say
shaking
that
her
for
head
you.
right
I
now.
know.
She
roll.
is a master of words.
Yes.
She
Okay.
hold on. I'm going to steal some thunder
All
right
right,
here.
all right.
She will read some of her poems afterwards and go, "Oh my gosh, these are amazing! I
You know,
wrote
that
this.
is, it's
I
just,
wrote this."
That's
it
hilarious.
is a little delight because you
Yeah,
write
yeah.
so much you forget what you write. And,
Yeah.
and honestly, I think so much is like inspired by like the Lord in my heart and mind. So I, don't even
Oh yeah.
remember. And then I go back and I'm like, oh man, yeah, that was good. But I think it's a joy in the gift that he's given me. It's
Yeah.
not like
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm so amazing.
Yeah.
Everyone should be
got
like
Well, I
me.
think-
Anyway,
I think
what was your
that
question?
is. I think that is.
You were saying how
humility.
amazing of a writer I am.
Well,
go on,
no.
go
Back to
on.
that point of admiring things. I think the humility of it is recognizing that all things are because of God, through God, and
Yeah,
in
they
Him,
are.
and
Of course.
any gift that we have. And so, I think that's something I even struggled with for many years is, I'm not that good, or I stink at this. And
Yeah. Oh, I can just play the accordion in a weekend.
well,
You know.
I just learned in a day
Let's
or
make Luke
two.
uncomfortable here for a second.
I'm the interviewer. But I think that's the cool thing is because I'll listen back to like songs that we do at Grace,
Yeah.
and you get so wrapped up in the project that by the time it's done, you're like, I can't listen to this thing for like
Right.
6 months, and then I'll go back and I'll be like, oh wow, like
And
I
there's
really,
joy. Yeah, it's a delight.
Yeah,
for
I think
sure.
there's a delight too in finishing some kind of project, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think if you don't have that, then it's like, well, that would stink to just keep creating and
Yeah.
hate everything you've ever done.
Right.
But anyways, back to the point, is what goes behind, like, what's your thought process behind, because one thing I love to hear is just how different artists and creative people, like their processes behind what they do, and some of it's very, lined out, and some of it's just completely crazy.
Yeah.
And so what goes, if anything, don't feel like you got to make anything
Yeah.
up.
It's
No,
called
I
the
have-
unprocessed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Justin's
okay.
laughing because he knows like the word goal and process make me want to throw up a little bit.
Yeah.
Not
feel
bad
you.
things.
Yeah.
We need them.
Personality.
So I don't know, like, so I do have a lot of poems that I've written, but on our website I also have we call them expositions, which is like, explaining an idea or a theory. So they're kind of like blogs, I guess, or essays. So I write a lot of those as well. And honestly, for me, usually those are coming out of just a place of something that God is teaching me, or a conversation that I had with someone, or, scripture I read and then journaled through or whatever. So a lot of times they're literally just like an overflow of what's already going on in my heart or mind.
It's
When I'm-
partly true, but she did this thing called NaNoWriMo is
Yeah, I don't know
National
how to say it.
Novel Writing Month in November. And so you try to write every day. The goal is to produce a novel, but she started it and didn't produce a novel. She shifted from trying to do a book to only doing
Just writing
poems.
poems, yeah.
And then the next thing you know, she's got, 105 poems
Man,
in
that's crazy.
1 month.
Yeah.
And you're like, and they're not just like, roses are red.
That's a good poem.
It's these deep,
It's a good poem.
deep
Has lasted
writing from
Yeah.
deep hearts, like
Yeah.
from the deep place in your
A lot
heart.
of times that I'm a feeler, and I'm always thinking about what other people are going
Sad
through.
things.
So a lot of times I'll write, like, I love to gift poems, like, to people through, just things they've shared with me. So, like, I wrote a poem for a couple once who the husband had, like, had, like, kind of a secret life of addiction. And so I wrote a poem called Shadow Walker for them. And I don't know, just, like, trying to relate and connect to people in that way, and like gift them with something like, I hear you, I understand,
Yeah.
a little bit of what you're going through. I do have one, like, when I'm sitting down to create for like a project or something, I saw some show once, and it was like, if you look from left to right at things, like left to right, it engages both sides of your brain, and so you're more creative. Because
Interesting,
so
okay.
I'll sit down and I'll just look from left to right and kind of say in my head the different things that I see, and then I always like just pray. I'm like, God, help me. And usually, like, after I do those two things,
Yeah.
it's like the download comes, and then
Yeah.
I can just start going. But
That's awesome. I love
that's
that.
my tiny process.
Hey,
It's like my practical thing.
Listen,
Look
Amy's
around
process for
and
writing
ask
is
Yeah.
God for help.
look from left to right
hey.
and then start
if it works, it works. That's all you got to do. If it
does.
works, it
Oh
works.
man, I have a
But-
3-step process, which is dumb.
Yeah.
That
For-
takes too long.
What's
Oh,
your 3-step
mine's
process?
I'm not
short.
going to tell. It's a
I want
secret.
to. No, that's the point of the podcast is to share all your secrets.
For preaching.
Yeah, for preaching.
Yeah.
So
which is
it's
basically writing.
yeah,
And
it's
reading
very
it.
similar, but it's like a mind up. So you read the scripture, you do all your thoughts and notes, so you get them all into one spot. And so my messages will be
Yeah.
12 pages to start with. It like Fetters will look at it and go, "Dude, that's overwhelming. I can't believe you do that." But
That's awesome.
I'm not saying they don't want to know the scriptures. Like, I really want to know what the scripture says.
Yeah.
And then I'll transfer it over to my message notes and whittle it down to 7 half pages or 6 half pages.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will turn it into a media script, which is what we have to do, where it's
Yeah.
just the things that are going on the screen. And so
That's
anyway.
good though. Well, I think that's it. It's everybody's process is different, and so I think the one thing I wish I would have learned a lot younger in life is I would hear how somebody did their process that like I looked up to, and I'd be like, oh, that's what I got to do to write a great song.
That's a hard journey. That's a hard journey to learn right there.
And so then it'd be like that, and then I'd fail a bunch, and I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm not, good at this. And then I'd hear somebody else's process, and I'd be like, oh, that's probably because I need to do it that way. And then I'd do it, and I'd fail again. And so it took me a long time to realize, or try to start, which I don't think I've arrived, but try to figure out like that process of what does work.
Oh, absolutely. That's it.
Yeah.
Like Tim and I you're talking about two different
Oh yeah,
people.
Absolutely.
I can't do what he does.
Yeah.
Impossible. It's impossible. I can't do his process. And I tried for the first few years at Grace, but it just there's still some things that I have to do that we all have to do.
Yeah. But I think that's the cool thing, and even the cool thing about Grace, and we talked about this with worship leaders and stuff like that, is there are so many different styles, and I think it's
beauty,
the thing.
though.
Yeah, it shows a bigger picture of the church. It shows a bigger picture of unity, where from preaching to worship leading to hosting to all these different things, you have all these different personalities, and we do have to follow some kind of, structure to some level, but there's so much freedom still within it to say Justin can be Justin, Luke can be Luke, and whoever, Amy can be Amy leading worship. It's like if we were to try to get some of our vocalists to sing like another vocalist, I think we would miss it. Like I've said this before, but like if I was to try to sing like Ben, it'd be horrible. I just can't. And he
Not because Ben's horrible.
No, he's too good. That's the problem.
He's unattainable.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be
Well,
honest.
yeah, and it's like, but even
Ben
if
Ali.
he was to try to sing like me, probably. He's great at mimicking things. I don't know.
Yeah, that is true. He's a
But
good,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? It's just like and I think there's even a level of vulnerability in that of just
I want to see him play the banjo.
Yeah.
He probably could. At least what I play. But yeah, so I think that's just the cool thing about art and even preaching, and which is an art form, I think, is there has to be, if you're trying to mimic something else, I think we do that too often, everybody in life, is we see something that works and we try to mimic it, and then it doesn't work. And then we keep trying and forcing because we're like, well, it should work. When in reality, it's just, well, what's God put in you to preach like, or to, and I think it's a very hard thing to learn. It's a very hard thing to do. But I think when you slowly get there, it's like so freeing and so beautiful. And then the cool thing is, which I will say this the day I die, is you have all your flaws and mistakes in that process, and then the Lord still uses it, and you're like, holy smokes. And
In
you're
spite
not
of us.
you're not amazed by yourself. You're amazed that like it's so simple. Like I always tell people that with worship leading, like some of the simplest worship sets I have, God seems to move the most, because it's like I'm not trying to perform, I'm not trying to do any of these things, and then he just, and so it's, for me anyways, it's not this feeling of like, oh sweet, see, I'm so good. It's like, holy smokes, it's so simple. Why do I make this?
God did something.
Yeah,
It's a miracle.
So yeah,
It's a
so
miracle,
cool.
God using sinners.
And I love that you guys are doing that through the preacher and poet, and just through poems and through paintings and preaching and videos. Now here in the video world, you guys are probably going to start doing it.
No,
We have 2 videos. We are in the video world.
2 or 3 maybe.
But no, I'm
I
so
can put
glad.
a bumper on.
There you go. There you go. Chris Anderson, you better watch out.
Go,
No, I'm
watch
just
out, Chris. That's all he really does,
Oh,
right?
whatever. Yeah,
right.
Oh my gosh,
Those guys
that guy's
are
insane
amazing too.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
hilarious. Well,
He's
thank you guys
talented.
seriously for being on the podcast. I just wanted people to hear your guys' hearts and story, because it's inspired me throughout the years, and so I thought it'd just be awesome to have you on. And so thank you for taking time out of it. And this has been awesome. It's been cool to just talk, and I've heard things that I haven't heard from you guys myself, so it's cool to
Really?
learn. Oh yeah. So
Wow.
I don't think I knew your process of looking left to right, although it makes sense now in meetings that we've been
Can
in
we
where I
really
see
call
you.
it a process? You're like, is Amy okay? Is she having...
Makes sense why you're doing that all the time. No, just kidding. Oh man. Well, seriously, guys, thank you so much for being on, and we love you guys. We're
Thank
thankful.
you, Luke.
Seriously, yeah,
Thanks,
We
absolutely.
love you too.
We'll talk to you guys
sure.
soon.
Peace.
Well, that was awesome, man. Thanks, Luke, for sitting down with them and talking to them. And huge thanks to Justin and Amy for taking time to talk to us. It's so good to hear their hearts. And, Amy is also a part of the worship ministry at the South Overland Park campus, right?
Yep. And she does writings for us that we use for videos and all kinds of stuff behind the scenes. So she has been a huge part of just creativity and services at Grace Church for many years. She's the silent one that does more than we could ever say for us, which is really awesome. But it was awesome. I always love talking to him, and so it was one of those conversations that you just walk away feeling inspired and excited about life. So it's cool. It was very cool. So, and
we don't really have much to announce this month or to remind people about. So just want to tell our listeners that are part of our worship ministry at whatever campus you're at, Olathe, North Overland Park, South Overland Park. We appreciate you and love you. And, our desire is that these podcasts might be an encouragement and you learn a little bit more about the core of who we are as a worship ministry. And thank you for being a part of the team. Whichever campus you're at, whatever role you play, you are an important part of bringing people to the throne of God every weekend. So thank you. Luke, I'm going to let you close this out, my friend.
As always, we just ask that if you get an invite from Planning Center, that you accept or decline. That always helps us out a lot. The sooner we know, the sooner we can help others get into those spots. And so if you've ever been on the side where you're asked last minute to play because somebody's dropped out last minute, unless it's an emergency, obviously those things happen. It's just always nice to, get the invite sooner than later for the people that, are next in line. So, it always helps to accept or decline.
That's right.
That's just the bottom line. So thank you guys, though, seriously, for all you guys are doing. We will talk to you guys soon. Oh, and just a friendly reminder, we'd like to think that we're not just a worship, but we're a community in general. And as far as that's concerned, fellas, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. So as a friendly reminder from your friends at Grace Church, just know February 14th.
Don't blow it.
Don't blow it.
Have a good one, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to the GC Collaborative Podcast. If you have any questions or would like more information, check us out at visitgracechurch.com.